Today we have a mighty battle worthy of gods. We have 3 GPUs, 3 brands, and almost the same price. Who's gonna win?
What do you think?
I mean, I literally don't know, I'm just narrating, you know. Anyway, who's gonna win? Let's find out. Today's video sponsor is GGG. Where using my SKG discount code leads to a 25% off across several products, making a Windows 10 serial key only $16. After the payment, you'll receive the key in your account and all you need to do is to introduce it in your Windows settings and bam! You have an activated system. Hello guys, I Shoot Gameplays, I'm Fabio Pisco and welcome to my channel. So as for today we have the mighty battle of 3 mid-range GPUs from 3 different brands. So, the RX 6700 XT from AMD, the RTX 3060 from Nvidia and the ARC A770 from Intel. And I do know that the 6700 XT is supposed to be a tier higher than the 3060 and both the ARC A770, at least mid-tier, higher than the 770, but they are at the same price. And if they are at the same price, people actually looking to buy these cards will look at these 3 because they are at the same price. And in this video I'm trying to show you which one is the best card to get if you go AMD, Intel or Nvidia in several situations such as rasterization performance, ray tracing and even upscaling technologies like DLSS, FSR and XeSS. and XeSS. So yeah, without any further delays, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video and let's go into the benchmarks.
He's going to catch us! Keep running!
Today's first game is Plague Tale Requiem. This is one of the most beautiful games nowadays, but also one of the most difficult to run. At 1080p we can see that the ARC A770 was losing to the RTX 3060 with rebar off, turning the tables then while using rebar on, delivering 8 average FPS more. Although if you look at the side-by-side comparison that I showed before, you can see that the frame timeline is completely messed up on the ARC A770, leading to an overall worse experience. Running the game on borderless full screen somehow helps with the frame time spikes though, but the other 2 cards just deliver a much smoother experience. At 1440p the ARC A770 smashes the RTX 3060 performance-wise, getting way closer to the RX 6700 XT, at least way closer than I thought it would ever be, and at 4K it actually manages to be on par with it, while delivering considerably higher performance than the RTX 3060, but we're talking about results below 30 FPS, so it doesn't really matter much. Now with Assassin's Creed Valhalla we have a completely different scenario where at 1080p the ARC A770 gets completely demolished by the RTX 3060 and massacred by the RX 6700 XT. Not even talking about how the Intel GPU was only delivering 49 average FPS with rebar disabled, which is ridiculous, just showing how much Intel needs to improve on this game engine. At 1440p, since the GPU overhead gets lower, the ARC A770 gets closer to the RTX 3060, being now only 9 average FPS slower, but still being bulldozed by the RX 6700 XT that delivers more 1% lows than the ARC A770 does on average. At 4K the tendency is exactly the same, with the RX 6700 XT being the only card able to achieve a bit over 50 average FPS. And well, the ARC A770 was bad on AC Valhalla for sure, but not as bad as it is on Cyberpunk 2077. The Intel GPU delivered one of the worst experiences I've ever had on this game. And Valhalla had low FPS, but it at least had stable frame times, while Cyberpunk has low FPS and horrible frame times. At 1440p things change a bit, although it still presents horrible frame times. It gets quite close to the RTX 3060 in terms of averages, which is way better than being over 20 average FPS behind like we saw at 1080p. And at 4K we get the ARC A770 finally surpassing the 3060 by 4 average FPS, and really getting close to the RX 6700 XT. But we're talking about 30 FPS and below, so nobody cares. Terrible optimization from Intel on this title. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is a title that came out recently and should be well optimized for the Intel GPUs, right? Wrong! This game runs like absolute crap on the ARC A770 without rebar, and even with rebar it struggles to get to the 3060 levels. And although it has the same frame rates, the gameplay is full of stutters that bring down the experience and make it quite annoyable and very hard to enjoy. This while both Nvidia and AMD cards deliver a completely smooth and enjoyable experience with more FPS and lower power draw. At 1440p, the ARC A770 starts showing its power, now delivering 9 average FPS over the RTX 3060 and getting close to the RX 6700 XT. And at 4K, the hierarchy is exactly the same, but with the Intel GPU delivering considerable stutters from time to time, making the gameplay once again less enjoyable, even with more FPS. Guardians of the Galaxy also bring interesting results, with the ARC A770 not being able to run this game without rebar on, with the game presenting 1 frame at each 4 seconds. Ridiculous. As for the remaining results, this is one of the games where Nvidia GPUs really do well. Even though the RTX 3060 presents only a bit higher averages than the 6700 XT, it delivers a massive difference in the 1% lows, leading to a smoother gameplay, with the RK 770 running worse than both, but not as bad as in some previous titles. At 1440p, the RX 6700 XT manages to outmatch the RTX 3060 in the averages while still delivering quite lower 1% lows, with the ARC A770 being fairly close to the RTX 3060, once again in terms of averages. And at 4K, we do have a surprise, with the ARC A770 being virtually as fast as the RTX 3060, losing only in the 1% lows, with the RX 6700 XT still being the fastest GPU at higher resolutions. Moving to Forza Horizon 5, well, I seriously can't complain about the rebar performance of the RK 770, as this is one of the few games where this GPU runs very smooth. In fact, it delivers the same performance as the RTX 3060 at 1080p, even though it consumes a bit more power, and of course gets steamrolled by the RX 6700 XT the same way the RTX 3060 does. At 1440p, the non-rebar performance of the ARC A770 still gets on par with the mighty RX 580, but with the rebar on, we actually managed to surpass the RTX 3060. And at 4K, well, the ARC A770 just asserts its dominance over the RTX 3060, reaching almost 60 average FPS, while the RX 6700 XT sits comfortably at almost 80. Intel ARC GPUs were made to run better on newer APIs, of course, but especially on Vulkan. I tested Doom Eternal before on the ARC A770 and the game ran butter smooth, and that also applies to Rainbow Six Extraction. At 1080p it performs quite well even without rebar, and it is already spanking the RTX 3060 by 17 average FPS, but most importantly by exactly 40 FPS in the 1% lows, which is just insane, showing us how much faster and smoother the ARC A770 can be if well optimized. At 1440p the massacre just continues, with the RX 6700 XT being quite faster than both cards while consuming less power than the ARC A770. And at 4K, well, all results get close, with the Intel and AMD cards delivering once again better FPS in the 1% lows than the Nvidia one, showing us once again how much better they are when running Vulkan.
Approach Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is type Cessna 152.4 miles south.
Microsoft Flight Simulator isn't a Vulkan title, but it is one of the games where the ARC A770 delivers outstanding results. We can see this is one of the games where Intel worked on optimizing, as even without rebar, the performance exceeds the one delivered by the RTX 3060, and quite close to the RX 6700 XT. At 1440p, the Intel GPU gets even closer to the RX 6700 XT and easily outperforms the RTX 3060, delivering over 60 average FPS in this scenario. And at 4K, well, the RTX 3060 can't even reach 30 average FPS, while the RX 6700 XT delivers almost 40, and the RK 770 delivers almost 35. Going to another Vulkan title, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. This game did not run as smooth on the RK 770 as the previous three titles, but it also didn't present any major stutters, with the overall gameplay being quite enjoyable. At 1080p we have the RK 770 running fine without rebar, but running much better with it, delivering 22 average FPS over the RTX 3060 and only 6 below the 6700 XT, being its only issue the lower minimums. At 1440p the trend gets maintained, with the RTX 3060 being spanked by the other two cards, and with the 6700 XT being the faster card in terms of averages, but most importantly in terms of minimums. At 4K I hope that the RK707 delivered better minimums, but it wasn't the case actually, with even the RTX 3060 delivering way lower averages but way higher minimums, and of course with the RX 6700 XT being the best overall performer.
Brother!
The last game tested with rasterization is God of War, and holy shit, this is bad! Intel optimized their drivers so badly for this game that without rebar it runs at 36 FPS, which is on par with the 6500 XT that now costs $150 and consumes only 120 watts. And even with rebar, the performance is just bad. The 6700 XT is performing quite well at ultra settings, delivering over 90 average FPS, which is great, and the RTX 3060 delivers around 65, which is not that great but very acceptable, while the ARC A770 doesn't even reach 60. At 1440p the results are still bad for the ARC A770, but it gets closer to the RTX 3060 ones, maybe due to less CPU overhead at higher resolutions due to the lower FPS numbers, but even at 1440p ultra-wide it fails to achieve the RTX 3060 performance in this title, with both cards being completely owned by the RX 6700 XT at all resolutions tested.
We're not from here either. Stellantis locked us up here a year ago.
Now moving to the ray tracing benchmarks, you may actually think that your eyes are misleading you and are kind of poisoned by the previous results, but no. The ARC A770 is actually the fastest GPU in Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, which is a full ray tracing game that can't even be ran if your GPU does not support it. In here, the RTX 3060 shows the superior ray tracing performance on the Nvidia side, beating indeed the 6700 XT, but the Intel GPU shows it is even better than that superior ray tracing, being the only GPU close to 100 average FPS at 1080p, over 60 at 1440p and 30 at 4K. This was definitely my biggest surprise when I was testing the Intel ARC A770, and it was definitely an enjoyable experience. Going to Cyberpunk 2077, things change, but the ARC A770 is still delivering better ray tracing performance than the RX 6700 XT, even when being much slower without ray tracing. When using FSR 2.1 to upscale though, the 6700 XT outperforms the ARC A770 by 6 average FPS, but still gets stomped by the RTX 3060 that once again is much slower than the 6700 XT with no ray tracing. At 1440p, the ARC A770 now outperforms the RX 6700 XT on both ray tracing results, being closer to the RTX 3060 performance. I do believe that if Intel optimized their drivers for Cyberpunk 2077, we would see a massive performance uplift, with the ARC A770 maybe outperforming the RTX 3060 ray tracing performance. Spider-Man Remastered is the last title used with ray tracing, and this is a light ray tracing title, hence the results you see here, with all GPUs more or less on par, and with the 6700 XT actually delivering better ray tracing performance at 1080p. And since we may argue that we were bottlenecked at 1080p, we have the 1440p results, with the RX 6700 XT being faster in both native and ray tracing gameplays, and the ARC A770 also outperforming the Nvidia GPU. And even at 4K things are exactly the same, with the results being way closer, but with the best and worst still being the same. Moving to the final line with the upscaling performance in God of War. Like we saw before, the ARC A770 performed terribly in this game, and the CPU overhead is so damn big that even using FSR 2.1 we get only a mild increase from 50 to 55 average FPS, while both Nvidia and AMD GPUs get a considerable boost. Moving to a higher resolutions like 1440p ultra-wide makes absolutely no difference for the ARC A770, that still performs like shit. I mean, we should be seeing around 57 average FPS, and yet we go from 45 to 50, which is just bad. And the last one is once again Spider-Man Remastered, but now testing DLSS, FSR and XeSS. Right away we can see that using XeSS on both Nvidia and AMD cards delivers almost no performance uplift, and while it does deliver a good one for the ARC A770, it still loses to the FSR 2.1 in terms of performance and image quality. Moving to 4K upscaling, we still have XeSS delivering poor results to the RTX 3060 and exceptionally low ones for the RX 6700 XT. This, while delivering actually results on par with FSR 2.1 on the ARC A770, still with lower image quality though. Overall, great results for all the three GPUs since the ARC A770 was optimized for this title as well. All said and done, let's go to the conclusion. And concluding, guys, what do you think about the performance? Well, I can definitely say that the 6700 XT is the best card you can get in terms of rasterization performance. So about the same power draw, the same price, and way better in most games that we tested, okay? And by way better, I mean in some scenarios up to 30 or 40% better than the 3060. So it is indeed one of the best cards, if not the best card you can get for this price, and it is the RX 6700 XT. As for the 3060, well, if you're just looking into pure ray tracing, even if you have to use the DLSS, FSR, and if you're playing at lower resolutions, well, the 3060 might be your object of choice. And if you like testing new hardware, well, then go for the ARC A770. Although I cannot advise you to get the ARC A770 because I had like over 20 bugs. I'm not exaggerating, I had over 20 bugs, and in some games, even more older games, the ARC A770 just performs like crap. As you saw, for example, in God of War, and as you can see in many other DX11 titles that you may want to play, okay? So if you want to play older titles, definitely, and I repeat, definitely go to the 6700 XT or the 3060. If you want to explore newer titles and if you want to see how Intel GPUs will actually perform in a close future, well, Intel ARC A770 might be a good choice. For me, pure rasterization 6700 XT, and if you want to go with decent rasterization for the same price and better ray tracing performance, the 3060 is the way. And well, guys, thanks for watching, and sorry for the long video because I really wanted to cover all the parts that I could with ray tracing, upscaling technologies, several parts of several games with the Intel GPU and so on, how it performs, side-by-side comparisons and so on, and that's why the video is so long, but at least it is way more complete than the previous ones that I made, okay? And that's the point. Improving, and keep improving. That's not my motto, but that's, yeah, whatever. By the way, guys, I'll buy the RX 7900 XTX tomorrow, and it will arrive in 1 or 2 days, and then I'll bring you the unboxing, testings, undervolting and overclocking, which I do believe will bring around from 10 to 15% performance improvement in some scenarios with this card, because in most scenarios it is running at 2.2 GHz, mostly at 4K, so it has space to grow just with overclocking and undervolting. So yeah. And if AMD, because they didn't say they wouldn't send one, they just said that I would have to wait a bit longer. So I will indeed buy the card. If they actually send one within 1 month, I will return the card I bought and will keep the one AMD sent, okay? That's what I'm gonna do. Once again, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.